I'm Andy Bertram, voice of the Auburn Tigers, and you're listening to the Phillip Jordan Show podcast.
Back by nobody's demand but our own. Welcome into another edition of the Phillip Jordan Show podcast. I am Phillip Jordan. Check me out over at the Auburn Wire, talking all things Auburn sports. We got a fun show planned for you guys this week on the show. This isn't the only time you'll hear from me. Little programming note on Thursday night and Friday night. Me and good friend Brandon Osmond, host of LSU Breakdown, will be going live as soon as both college football playoff semifinal games end to recap, instant react to those games. I'm sure we'll get into some portal talk as well. So, cool stuff this week will be on the YouTube channel, Phillip Jordan Sports. My Facebook page, Phillip Jordan Sports, as well, will be live on those pages. And then, of course, there will be an audio podcast of that as well. But we got a fun one here today. Friend of the program, Blake Lovell. Of course, you can check him out over at the Southeastern 16, established the past podcast. He covers professional wrestling over at Sports Illustrated as well. We're going to get into three big topics with Blake. We're going to talk about Auburn's heartbreaking loss in basketball on Tuesday night against Texas A&M. I think Auburn got robbed. Blake gets his thoughts, but we'll jump in that, and also just kind of like the state of Auburn basketball right now. Then we'll jump into the college football playoffs. We'll give our thoughts on the semifinal games coming up. Look, I'll go ahead and give my picks. I think Ole Miss and Miami, I've been struggling. Even in this conversation you'll hear with Blake that we did on Wednesday evening, I kind of struggle with who I want to go with. I think Miami can win. I think Ole Miss can win. I'm going to go with Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is going to win the game just the way they're playing. Chip on shoulder. I just do not trust Carson Beck. I know he has not cost them a game these first two games, but I feel like also he's kind of due for one of those mess ups. And Trinidad Chambers is playing awesome. And I just can't go with Indiana. And I've been saying, I saw a broken record in college football probably the last month and a half, talking about it's hard to beat a team twice one year. I know Indiana beat Oregon early in the year. It was a good game, 2020. But also you could tell that Indiana was still a better team before they did pull away, win by 10 points in that game. Mendoza had to pick six in that game, and he bounced back from that. I just think Indiana's just the best team in football, in college football, and I just can't go against them in this one. I think they're going to affect Dante Moore once again. He got sacked 6 times, and he threw 2 interceptions against Indiana first time around. So I like the Hoosiers to win that and get to the national championship game against the Ole Miss Rebels. And again, we will close out. We're looking at some playoffs, NFL playoffs. There, we'll just have an NFL pod. He does as well. So we will go through that, and also our just thoughts on these teams. And my Super Bowl prediction is I think the Buffalo Bills will defeat the LA Rams in the Super Bowl this year. I just think this has got to be the year the Bills do it. With the Chiefs, with the Ravens, with the Bengals, not in the postseason, it's going to have to be those teams. So that's going to be the conversation with me and Blake. I think you'll enjoy it. It's always fun having Blake on. I told him at the end of the conversation, I think you'll hear that I like having Blake on because he likes all things I like. So we have an easy conversation. It's a lot of fun, just two guys talking sports. Before we do that, if you guys want to find me in the pod, find me on social media at PJordan Sports. Of course, you see that on the screen if you're watching there right now on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you're watching. Also, remember podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Please check it out. Apple, especially. I look at reviews. I read them. Leave 5 stars. Don't leave 4 stars. If you leave 4 stars, you're just a straight up hater. Come on. We know the spiel. And also, you can email me at sports.philipjordan@gmail.com. Now, let's jump into it with Blake Lovell. Let's have some fun talking about some sports.
Everybody joining me on the show today, good friend. We're going to talk probably a bunch of different little things. They're going to get bounced around here on the show today. Joining me is Blake Lovell. Check them out over at the Southeastern 16, where they're very busy. SEC basketball play has now started. Some teams have played 2 games already. of this recording. You've got transfer portal in football, Ole Miss still in the college football playoff, all bunch of stuff going there. As NFL podcast established the past. You can also check him out at Pro Wrestling over at Sports Illustrated, where he does a lot of writing over there. And Blake, appreciate you coming on. I hope I got everything.
I was gonna say, man, you reading that off, it sounds exhausting to me, and I'm like, I know how it is, kind of on a weekly basis. So yeah, no, I always enjoy it, Phillip, and yeah, there's plenty going on, as you said, right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just I know you guys are over the SEC football. I mean, every day. I mean, I'm having to. I'm trying to sneak away at work and try to look who is going where. Transfer portal is. Yeah. I tell everybody it's almost like just imagine if the NFL did free agency in the middle of the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it is. Like, that's what it's become. It's just like, hey, everyone, go get your money now and just enjoy it. Like, and coaches try to figure it out. Schools try to figure it out. And I mean, yeah, eventually, again, some of this stuff's there's going to be one that just breaks the entire system. And I think that may be sooner rather than later based on some of these already that we're seeing this offseason. But yeah, it's just kind of, it's the Wild West as it's been for a while. So.
Yeah, I mean, it just really caught me a few weeks ago. You were seeing posts from these teams saying such and such has re-signed. These are NFL teams and all that other stuff. So it's different world. I told you off air, I kind of was trying to figure, okay, where are we going to start off with this thing? And I thought maybe we'll start with football stuff. But SEC basketball treated us to an interesting night, especially there at Neville Arena in Auburn. With Auburn losing 90-88 to Texas A&M. Auburn is now 0-2 in SEC play. Of course, A&M of this recording. Of course, let everybody know we recorded this before any of the Wednesday night games, but they're the first team to get 2-0 in the conference. I'm just going to open it like this, and just let's open up a storm for you. Did Keyshawn Murphy make the shot?
So I led with this today on our show, and I know this is kind of an argument you just can't win either way. And that's what I called it. I called it the perfect storm of. You could replay that sequence, and by sequence I mean the play before that, where they're intentionally missing the free throw. They have to stop to figure out, okay, what happened, and of course Bucky McMillan was not happy that again the way it unfolded. So you can set that play up, and then to have 0.6 seconds on the clock, to then have the next play out the way that it did. You could do that probably 1,000 times, and I don't think you'd ever have that same sequence again. And again, it was like just the perfect storm for controversy. You had every single element you needed. You had what Texas A&M was like, why was the blown call in their eyes on the free throw? Then you have Auburn who makes the shot. Then you have them declare the shot as good, basically, before reviewing it. And then in the home arena of the team that just hit the game-winning shot, wave off it. And so it's like every single thing that went against like all logic feel like it just came together. And for me, and this is how I set it up. Quite honestly, and I feel like I've argued with some people on this, but like what I think doesn't matter. What the referees saw, that's what matters. And I always point out, and people have asked me this on Twitter, they're like, hey, why don't we see every angle they see? We just don't. Like, we don't see every single thing they're looking at, and I don't know that we ever will when it comes to when they're replaying that whole sequence there and seeing is the ball still on his fingertips or not. We see what they give us on the broadcast. And quite honestly, Phillip, I didn't, I'm not knocking the broadcast here, but I thought there could have been ways to improve how we saw what we saw, whether it's slowing it down, whether it's freeze frames, like all those things. But even then, it was going to be tricky because you saw how close it was. And, I've seen the screenshots out there of everybody, well, the basket clock says 0, but the scoreboard, in the balcony or whatever says 0.1. So why is that? How are we getting a different shot there than we're getting? And that's where, long story short, I texted, I said, look, I think it's still on his fingertips. But the ruling is that it's a made basket. And so that's where the whole inconclusive comes in. And like I've kind of said, they're not overturning it unless they are seeing an angle that clearly we did not see. From what we saw, I don't think you can overturn it. But they're seeing something that made them confident enough to say it was enough to overturn it. It's just the problem is transparency, right? And that's what Stephen Pearl was upset about. That's what Auburn fans are upset about. And they have every reason to be, because you have the moment of jubilation, and then without knowing exactly why, you're told it doesn't count. Referees leave, and again, it's the perfect storm.
They didn't leave; they ran. They got out.
They got out of there. Yeah.
And I kind of agree with you there, especially if at home we're fed to believe, which you're right. We're not seeing every angle that they can see, but by the angles that we can see, you're like, okay, you ruled it good on the court. How can you overturn that? Like, I felt like it was the same way you could go if they ruled that he didn't make it, then you go and look back at it. You can't. It's both ways of that. But I also look at with this, on the Auburn side of things, though, you had double-digit leads in this game, so you kind of choked that away. You were up by 10 at halftime, up by 16 with 12:29 left in the half, and then A&M went up with 8:42. And they had a double-digit lead too as well. So this game just had everything. Neither team really acted like they wanted it. And I kind of thought about with the Auburn side thing, just kind of watching this team this year. And I felt like, and a lot of people I believe did, going into this was going to be a work in progress. Stephen Pearl taking over, this group never playing together. One, it feels like Tahad Pettiford and Keyshawn Hall can never play great at the same time. That is something that we have not seen very often this year, and their lack of size has obviously been a problem. To me, sometimes, Blake, when I watch them play, I see a bunch of good individual players, but I don't always feel like they're playing as a group. And I'm not going to compare them to what they were last year. I mean, that group was together for 3 years. That's unfair. But what are you seeing just watching this team on the floor and just some of the issues they've been having?
Yeah, I think, and before Bruce retired, I mean, we were this summer, I felt like we were lower on Auburn than most people, because every time we'd kind of group SEC teams into like a top 6. And we were always saying, we think Auburn's the 6th of that group, because, it's just a completely different team. And I think that if anyone thought they were going to come into the season and just replicate either what they did last year or even come close to that, I just think that was misguided based on the roster, because I didn't love the roster. Honestly, I was kind of looking at it and trying to figure out exactly what their identity was going to be. It felt like Tahad Pettiford's back. We're banking on Keyshawn Hall to be a star, and then we're just hoping we can get everybody else to the somewhat, of an SEC starter caliber level. And again, like, I think they've gotten contributions from lots of guys this year, but the problem is that, like you said, it's a bunch of skilled players that, it just, for whatever reason, it's not come together specifically on defense, and that's been the most disappointing thing. Like, I had people, I think, kind of pushing back a little bit when I just kept saying they're a bad defensive team. And it was like, well, they played a lot of great offensive teams. Okay, but like at a certain point, who cares? Like, you are what you are, and are you just saying we're just going to say we're going to lose to every good offensive team? If that's the case, you're going to lose a lot of games this season, because there are some good offensive teams in the SEC. And so, I think the way they've lost some of those big games, I know how good Michigan is. I know how good Arizona is, Purdue and all that, but you could kind of see in those games the way they lost them. That's not a team that you're real confident in when we're talking about playing these high-level games, where the margin of error is so much smaller than it was last year. And we've seen that in these first 2 SEC games. Like, I mean, you're talking about, look how thin the margin is. You score 100 points and 88 points in your first 2 SEC games, and you lose both of them. Like, there's just no excuse for that. Like, you should be winning both of those games, but yet you give up 104 and 90, and A&M goes on a 33-6 run or whatever the stat was. You're not going to win many games like that, and so I think this team has a clear ceiling when it comes to kind of what this roster can achieve, unless they can fix some of the defensive things. And I think someone asked me earlier, like, well, if they just fix the defense, I'm like, they can get better, but they're not fixing this as a whole. Like, this roster is what it is. They're not just going to all of a sudden have defensive superstars pop up out of nowhere. So that's the thing we're going to keep talking about all season, and at least their games will be entertaining. Phillip, I can say that, but can't guarantee they're going to win as many as people thought. So.
Yeah, I mean, because you just think last year when you had Janai Broome and Dylan Cardwell, guys like that inside the paint. I mean, there's been a lot of games this year, even games they've won, where they've been outplayed in that area. I mean, now they did out rebound Georgia on Saturday, but still, there's been games in the paint and then on the rebound. They have just been, I hate to say it, just dominated in those areas. And talk about Jahad Pettiford. It just now when they're away from Auburn, he's great. I mean, he has been awesome, but he has not showed up at home. Didn't have a great game against A&M. He did against Georgia. And then that's an interesting deal there because now he's coming off the bench, whatever the standards he didn't meet that Stephen Pearl was talking about. So it is kind of I think he's probably one of the bigger disappointments so far this year.
Well, and I think that's where, too, it's all about expectations. And man, you look at his role last year versus what his role was going to be this year and the different responsibility he was going to carry. That's tough. Like you're talking about a guy who kind of wasn't under the radar last year, but he didn't have to be the guy. Like he was able to be the guy that took advantage of how players played the other guy, and that was Broome. And so this year, though, like everybody's keying in on you, and everybody is saying we're going to put you to the test and see, can you be that guy every single game? And, as we've seen so far, like there's just been a lot of ups and downs and too. And like, I mean, for his argument, he doesn't have the same roster around him. And so, it's probably a little tough on him to be like, oh man, like my game is nowhere near as easy as it was, not just because people are keying on me defensively, but I just don't have the same kind of supporting cast. And, that's just that there's much more challenges when it comes to that. So,
and they got Arkansas coming up next, and then you got Missouri, South Carolina. So look, Missouri, South Carolina, maybe teams you could beat. Arkansas is good. We'll see, but you'll be at home. I mean, Auburn's really good at home, and like I said, the offense. I mean, they can score points. They got plenty of guys that know how to put the ball in the bucket. Just let's just say, for instance, this thing they keep losing games this way, and it does kind of go south, and just kind of the way Stephen Pearl got the job. And I don't think Auburn would give him more than 1 year just because they're for Bruce. But I mean, you got to feel like if it kind of keeps going this way this year, he is going to have some incredible pressure on him next season.
No, I think so, and I think that's where again you kind of it's Bruce's roster this year, but it's not all Bruce's roster. Like Stephen Pearl helped build this roster, and I think we understand that, and I think that's where you're going to get a little wiggle room for that reason, is to be like, okay, Bruce is the head guy. Yes, Stephen Pearl is helping with recruiting and all that. Understood. He's a top level type guy, but you're going to get a chance to now say, all right, here's why this happened. Okay, in the midst of the transition to me, here's why we either underachieved or didn't meet expectations, whatever it looks like at the end of the season. And that means we got to increase NIL. We got to, those conversations are going to be had. And I think it's where, okay, that's step one. And so we'll go in the next season. Were they able to accomplish that? If they are, they'll have a chance to be successful. If not, and they have another season like that next year, well, then all of a sudden, I think the question becomes, what is the Auburn job, right? Mm-hmm. And like I was having this conversation with some of our members over at Southeastern 16 earlier. They asked me the question, like, how would you rank the SEC jobs right now, 1 through 16? I said, well, I think the two jobs that I have the toughest time ranking are Alabama and Auburn, because are you ranking them based on what they are now, or are you kind of, which was made, let's call it what it is, by Nate Oates and Bruce Pearl? Or are you ranking them kind of, what they are without those two guys? And I think that's where the discussion gets interesting, right? And so that's where you see what schools are willing to kind of put into it. And I think this is going to be a great example of, are we willing to invest what we need to invest, knowing that football is investing a great deal now with Alex Golesh. They're going to have to be successful. Everyone in the SEC knows that. And so what are you willing to do for basketball? And can you stay on that same level as everybody else without Bruce Pearl? And, I don't care if it's his son. They're different people. And so I think that's going to tell us a lot probably next season.
Yeah, it was always the joke around Auburn fans that when the football team was struggling, so when does basketball season start? So I guess now they're going to start saying when does baseball season start with
Right.
Butch Thompson on that side of things. Oh, real quickly, Florida beating Georgia 92-77, 14 straight wins now at home. The bigs for Florida were great, but Surreal decided to throw a little punch and for Georgia, and you could tell. Well, after that happened, Florida just feasted in the paint for a good bit down. Georgia made a run, but then of course Florida again pulled away with the big victory. What was your big takeaway from Florida's win?
Yeah, I thought Florida was kind of in a situation that like Missouri felt like they were in the game before, where it's like Missouri kind of felt like their season was going to be defined by that Florida game because they were coming off the 93 whatever 40 something point loss to Illinois. And so you felt desperate if you were Missouri. I don't say Florida was desperate against Georgia because you're playing a top 20 team at the time. And Georgia's, been one of the surprises of the SEC this year. The team I swung and missed on the most in the offseason. I just didn't really have a great feel on them, but they've looked really good. But like you said, it was kind of a turning point moment for a team that felt like it had to win. And, that's the thing is like Florida's record, a lot has been made of that. It's very misleading. I mean, look at their record, but look at how much they've lost by in all their games. We're talking a team that's lost by 6, I think 4, 3, 1, 2. Like they've run the gamut of like the 1 through 5s. Like they have just been right there with a chance to win all these games. And the difference is, well, they don't have a great shooter. They don't have Walter Clayton. And that's just been it. Like it's been as simple as that. But they've been a team that should have won at Duke if Duke doesn't hit a big shot at the end of the game. They had a chance to beat UConn basically in their home at Madison Square Garden. The TCU game, yeah, you're going to scratch your head a little bit. 6-point loss to Arizona. No shame in that. And they faced a Missouri team, like I said, that's completely desperate, kind of playing for its season on the road. They lost by 2. So I just think Florida's downfall has been completely sort of exaggerated at this point. And I think this game just kind of showed you, yes, Florida's not going to be a national championship contender with their guard play right now. It's just not going to happen. But their front court's good enough to get them to the Elite 8, like probably. I mean, it really is. So I think Florida's going to be fine. I think they should be one of the favorites to win the SEC. It's just a matter of seeing how their guard play develops from here.
So you're talking about Final Four. We have our Final Four football this week, Thursday, Friday situation. Hey, if you're a football fan, you got it made Thursday through Monday, really, when it comes to playoff football. I kind of like the setup as a football fan with the 2 playoff games going Thursday, Friday, then we get the NFL through the rest of the weekend. Yeah. I think Ole Miss is a great story, just with the whole Lane Kiffin side of things. And then on the other side, I got Miami. I was upset that Ole Miss beat Georgia because I wanted the drama of Carson Beck versus the Georgia Bulldogs. I was really looking forward to that. I said, there's no way that matchup happens. I just thought these results would be flipped around. But Ole Miss is really good offense. Miami's defense up front. Blake, when I watch Miami, I keep in the back of my head, I cannot, with the life of me, pick them to win any of these games because I'm waiting for Carson Beck to mess it up for them. So I feel like I want Ole Miss to win. I'm an SEC guy. Everybody knows that. But also, I just don't trust Carson Beck. He's done well 2 games, but I still don't trust the guy.
And all the talk is like about Miami's defense and understood. Like their defense has been good this season. There's no question. I mean, we kind of saw what they did to A&M. They've had other great performances this year. And if they win this game, that'll be the talking point. I think more so than Carson Beck, it's going to be, well, their defense got it done. Because here's the thing. Ole Miss has the best player on the field by far. Mm-hmm. Like, Chambliss is the best player on the field, without a doubt. Some may even argue he's the best player left in this thing. And I know Mendoza's the quarterback for Indiana. But what Chambliss can do, I don't know that there's anybody else out there that's left in this thing that can make the kind of plays that he can make. Like, he's making NFL-type plays down the stretch in that Georgia game. And I think that could be the difference here. As good as Miami's defense has been, if he just keeps doing his thing, I think Ole Miss is going to be fine. And I really think that's what it comes down to. And, really, I think that's, when you are kind of setting it up this way and you're seeing how we got here. Like, the game can be very simple sometimes. Like, Indiana has the best coach and maybe the best quarterback. That's a great formula to be where they are right now. Mm-hmm. Ole Miss, like I said, may have the best quarterback, may have the best player at any position, in Chambliss, just based on how he's playing right now. And, that's why for me, I'm going to maybe, I don't know, pick the obvious because Ole Miss is the underdog, right? I believe by the spread.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, there's no chance I'm picking against Indiana or Ole Miss right now. Like, based on those two teams and what I've seen from them as of late, no chance. I don't care how good Miami's been. I don't care how good Oregon's been. Like, it's really hard to pick against those two teams. And I think, again, it kind of goes back to just the chip on the shoulder of Ole Miss. And there is nothing I would love more than to see Ole Miss win the national championship. Like, Phillip, I'm not an Ole Miss fan at all. You know that. But, like, even if I wasn't an SEC guy, there is nothing I would love more than to watch Ole Miss win the national championship. And, Lane Kiffin's tweet after would probably break Twitter. But that's fine. He can keep tweeting all he wants. But yeah, I hope Ole Miss gets there. And yeah, maybe that is some bias coming in, but like based on how this whole thing played out, come on, like need the Rebels to find a way to get past that Miami defense. So
if Ole Miss wins the title, they should wait to unveil any banner or anything until the week LSU comes to Austin.
Yeah. They should invite Lane Kiffin the week that they play LSU to the championship ceremony and have him come out on the field as the LSU coach and join in on the celebration.
Also, on our down here in Dutton, on our local sports talk show, there was a caller that called in this week, and he said Ole Miss would win a national championship before they ever made an appearance in the SEC championship game.
Well, that's true. It's wild, but like I said, you can never underestimate, I think, that mental side of this thing, of how this whole thing is played out. And that's why I fully expected Ole Miss to be ready for that game against Georgia. Now, of course, like a lot of people, pick Georgia to win. But yeah, I think that's it. So I don't know. I don't think it's a bad matchup for Ole Miss at all. And I think with Chambliss, they got a chance against anybody. So.
The other one, the All Big Ten matchup, and as a big basketball guy too. But did you ever think the day that the Indiana football program would be better than the basketball program?
Can you imagine like having this conversation like in July, saying, "All right, I'm going to give you the Final Four in the college football playoff, and you give me a percentage on what you think this Final Four. Just give me a percentage." If someone told you Indiana, Oregon, Ole Miss, and Miami, nobody would have said higher than 0.5% maybe of this being your Final Four. But I was talking to somebody yesterday about Curt Cignetti, and I was like, I realize everyone wants to bring up the Saban connection and all that, but I'm going to bring up the Saban connection like for a different reason, and that is, I don't know that in this sport that I have been more enamored and fascinated by a single figure than I am since Nick Saban than Curt Cignetti. Like, I think he is, and this is where, like, me being the nerd I am sometimes, like, I have gone down the rabbit hole of watching this guy on YouTube speak at all these coaching clinics, like all these, like everything, right? Like all the clips to get out there and just the philosophy. And I'm like, every single time, well, know who that sounds like? Know who that sounds like? Yep, sounds like, yep, that's him. That's Nick Saban. Like, he's talking like Nick Saban. And it's just like, I'm not saying this guy's going to come anywhere close in his career to having the resume that Nick Saban has. But, man, I don't know if there's been a guy that I've seen that has, like, had this sort of – it's just the characteristics, right? Like, Kirby's different. Kirby, you could say, well, Kirby, all this, and yes, he's had the success, and, he became the guy that sort of rivaled Saban there at the finish. But it's just something about Curt Cignetti that I'm just like, he has those little intangibles, those little it factors that I just don't know that I've seen many people have in this profession. And I'm not saying Indiana is going to be the best team in college football for the next decade, but I am saying if he's the head coach there for the next decade, I'd place my bet on them right now, being right there in that top group, because I just think it helps being Indiana, where you have, billionaire boosters that can give you all the money you need. But as he proved, he don't even need that. Like, he don't even need to go out and get all the guys and pay them millions of dollars. He just needs to build a team. And I think that's completely undervalued in this era. So,
yeah, I know. And them going to get Oregon, which they played, earlier in the year. I feel like I have been a broken record during from the SEC championship on. I said it's hard to beat the same team twice in 1 year. I feel like I'm saying that every week, but the way they bother quarterbacks, and we saw with Ty Simpson, which Alabama has not been able to run the ball all year long. I don't know if him going pro is the right decision for him, but hey, more power to him. But they did that with Dante Moore earlier, 6 sacks, 2 interceptions, and that's kind of like with all that, the way this team is playing, it's just hard to pick against them. With everything that you said too. I mean, it's hard to even just being a rematch. Oregon's a good team. That was a good game. It was 20-20. Then they scored those last 10 points, but it's just hard to pick against them.
Yeah, I can't do it. Like I've kind of been set on it. Indiana, Ole Miss. I hope that's the game we get. I think that's the most exciting storyline driven matchup you could have for the national championship by far. And so yeah, I hope that's the one we get.
Looking at, of course, I mentioned you do an NFL pod too. The NFL playoffs. I want to look at the AFC because I don't know how to figure this conference out because we have the Broncos as the number 1 seed. Who would have thought Bo Nix, when he was at Auburn, would be leading the number 1 seeded team in NFL? And then you got the Jaguars there. They've had a great year, and then the Patriots. And when I look at those 3 teams, I just feel like this has got to be Buffalo's year. This has got to be the year they get out of the AFC. They don't have the Chiefs to deal with. They don't have the Ravens. They don't have the Bengals to deal with. And I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm just all in on Josh Allen. But I feel like Buffalo's going to come out and win the AFC. How are you seeing it?
Well, I'll tell you. So we did our predictions episode earlier today, and of course my dog's out here barking at the door, wanting to get in on the NFL action. It sounds like, but so I said I've been picking against the Jaguars all year. I have said they are going to eventually just be done. Like someone's going to top them, and it just hasn't happened. And I'm like, the Bills seem like the perfect team to put themselves in a position to where it's like, all right, if there's somebody that's going to stop this, it's gonna be Josh Allen, right? Like he's gonna be the guy that stops this thing. But I'm just like, what fascinates me is like what happens if the Bills win this game. Where do their odds then sit? Like in terms of like if you're looking at whatever, all the sports book, like where do their odds sit in terms of, how do they shift more towards Buffalo than they are at Denver right now, who does, I think, have the best odds to win the Super Bowl of any AFC team because, well, they're the number 1 seed. But, like, I think you're going to see a dramatic shift if Buffalo goes in and wins this game. Like, all of a sudden, it's going to be like, all right, we just needed to see that, and now we're good. Like, we just need to see them go in and beat this Jacksonville team that's 9-1 or whatever in their last 10, 8-2 against the spread. We just need to see them go in and do that, and then we'll be fine, right? So... Mm-hmm. I'm fascinated by this matchup because all year long I feel like I have kind of not been sold on Jacksonville, but now I look at kind of where they are, and I wasn't sold on Liam Cohen as the hire, to be honest with you. Like I just wasn't sure. I was like, man, that's a tough step to make that step to being like the head coach at the NFL level. Phillip, I'm sorry, this dog is like he's losing his mind. I don't know what he's got going on over here, but yeah, like it's one of those where I think. I've gone on record to pick Jacksonville, but I'm only doing it because I feel like I picked against them all year. But I'm kind of with you in that I think Buffalo, without these other teams in there, if they get past this one, I don't know that I could pick against them the rest of the way just based on the Josh Allen effect. So
we talk about Buffalo Bills, and then either your dog's very excited about the Buffalo Bills,
I don't know what he's doing out here,
or really disagrees with our comments there. I feel like the Chargers are going to beat the Patriots, and I think the Texans are probably. I think Rodgers got his kind of like his swan song on Sunday night, in a way, if he decides to retire, because I just don't see the Steelers being able to protect him against that Texans defense.
And I think that's it. Like to me, it's the Texans defense, and I always laugh too. I'm like, am I really this high on 2 AFC South teams that are very unpredictable? This division I feel like has been the most unpredictable division out there. It's like, am I really riding with 2 AFC South teams in this playoff against the Steelers and the Bills? Right? Yeah, that's a great idea, Blake. But it is the Texans defense. Like that's the key here, and I just, and I think some of that when it comes to like why is Houston the favorite in this game. I mean, look, we are talking about a missed field goal away from the Steelers not being here, and
I thought
I
for
think
sure
that
they were going to get eliminated. They were going to.
I know.
When that extra point got missed, I said, "Oh man, Aaron Rodgers is going to miss the playoffs and potentially his last season because of a kicker." But it didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, the way this thing sat up, like I was just thinking, man, it felt like one of those where like, oh, Houston's gonna. As much as I like the Texans, I'm like, they're gonna have to go to Baltimore and they're gonna run into Lamar Jackson, and it's like, just it's not gonna work out for them. But this matchup I like a lot better, and I think it's kind of one where defensively, if you like, again, it's kind of there's a difference where if you're trying to match up against Lamar Jackson and you're trying to match up against Aaron Rodgers and the skills and the strengths that they currently have at this point in their careers, I just think this is one where Houston and what they can do, it's going to be really tough for Pittsburgh to kind of generate any offense here. And, you still have your questions about, I think, the offense for the Texans, but this does feel like one of those games. And I think the over-under set at like 39.5, something like that. If this was 13-10, it's not going to surprise anybody. I mean, it's just like that feels like this kind of game. And really that depends on if the Texans can dictate this with their defense. So,
real quick looking at the NFC. I know I've kept you over 30 minutes already here on the show. Well, the Rams and the Panthers. I feel like we need to predict this game or anything like this because I think we all know we're just going. And the thing is, the Panthers fans say, "Well, they beat the Rams." Was it? Yeah, turnovers and rain was a big part of that one. The Rams just seem like the team when they're right. They're probably the best team in the league. But they're at where they're at. They've lost to the Panthers. I mean, a couple weeks ago, that Thursday night game against Seattle. I mean, with the most insane 2-point conversion we've maybe ever seen in an NFL game when that went down the way it did. But I just feel like, to me, I'm picking the Rams to come out of the NFC, but they just feel like when they're right, playing to their level, they're the best team.
Yeah, and I think that, when that spread came out and it was 10.5, I'm like, this team is a road favorite, 10.5 points against a team that already beat them. Like, I mean, in a wild card playoff setting, that kind of shows you what I think that, the odds makers see in Carolina and how they got here. And that's, you applaud them for getting here, but it's like, man, I just don't know. I can't look at that and just look away and be like, oh, yeah, well, okay, I'll just go pick the easy upset, 10.5 points, right? Just not something you see often. And so I'm with you. I think the Rams at their best feel like the team that, if I'm looking at it from an NFC standpoint, like I would probably feel very confident in their ability to certainly have a great chance. And I think, a lot of that's really just going to be dependent on, do you kind of go out and do the things that you just couldn't do the last time around? And like you said, the weather and that kind of stuff factored in and everything. But you have more confidence because the Rams have kind of been here before. And I think that's going to play into this thing too. Whereas with the Panthers, yes, they've gotten here, but, let's call it what it is. They're an 8-9 team in, a division that has kind of become what it's become. It's just not a great division. And, I mean, if this spread was the Rams at the Bucks, it's not 10.5, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing, is it's not 10.5. And I think that's where it's like, it's just impossible to pick against the Rams in this spot.
Yeah, the 49ers Eagles on Sunday. I know the Eagles are 4.5. It's just one of them games where the Eagles offense does not look great in a good bit. The 49ers have great offense, but you question their defense, and we saw what Seattle did to them, just shut them down. And just playoff football, you got to feel like that. It is the right call for the Eagles to be the favorite.
Yeah, and I would expect this one to be kind of a tough, grinded out type game. It feels like, just based on maybe how these two teams need to win. I mean, I may have picked it. I don't remember. I may have picked this in my NFC title game coming into the season. And probably most people did, I would think, just based on kind of, expecting the Niners to bounce back, and the Eagles, you didn't really expect much of a drop off. But, both these teams has given us reasons to doubt them this season. And I think that's where, now that it's playoff time, it again kind of goes back to who do you trust more. And I think this will probably be closer than the 5-point, spread may indicate or whatever. But I think it's hard to pick against the Eagles. If this game was in San Francisco, maybe, but I still think matchup wise, the Eagles have some advantages here, and I think that's really what it comes down to. They are the Eagles. We know what they did last year, and sometimes when you get that team that feels, even though it's different, you get them in this setting, all of a sudden the light turns on. They're like, all right, yep, we remember what we got to do, like to get back to where we want to go. So, kind of gives you that reset a little bit. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that happened with the Eagles and they come out, play well here, and keep advancing, have a chance to get back to the Super Bowl. But yeah, I think they're in a better position than the Niners are right now.
Look, they've won 2 games this year with Jalen Hurts not completing a pass in the second half, too.
Right.
So that's another thing with them on that side.
Yeah.
Now, anybody knows me, and you know this about me, that I'm a Packers fan. So I had to save the Bears and the Packers for last. And this is going to sound like a Packers fan making a prediction, Blake, but I think the Packers are going to beat the Bears. I think this was the worst situation for the Bears to get into. I think it's the best for the Packers. I know the Packers lost 4 in a row, but do we really need to count the game against the Vikings? I mean, the Packers pretty much should have just forfeited that one. I mean, that was a team that didn't even try to win, even with the backups. They did not even try to attempt to do anything there. The Packers beat them when they had Jordan Love. I know that Michael Parsons obviously still got hurt a few weeks ago when Love got knocked out. The Packers should have beat them that time. I mean, it's just it felt like the Packers lost, the Bears didn't win. So I'm going into this. I think the Packers are going to feel like we know we can beat this team. We know we're better than them, especially if Jordan Love is healthy the entire game. I just think the Packers are going to take care of.
Well, and I think, like I said about the reset, I think if there's anyone that wants to reset more than anyone in this field of wild card games, the Packers. Like they just are like, okay, let's start this thing over. Like it's a new season. Let's kind of turn this around. And I think there is something about this Bears team that feels different. We were having the debate on our show. I kind of posed the question: who of this entire wild card round is going to be the most talked about player? Say come Tuesday, right? If we're looking back, I'm like the most talked about player of this round. I said it's going to be Caleb Williams, because one way or the other, it's going to be Caleb Williams, whether they win or whether they lose, because that is where I think the expectations are for this Bears team. They have to win this game, and so if they win it, it's probably going to be because of Caleb Williams. If they lose it, maybe no matter how he plays, it's going to be about can Caleb Williams get it done, right, in a playoff setting, and that's going to be the question going into next year. So I think it's a fascinating setup, given, again, we've seen these two teams play a couple times recently, and I think that helps. But, it's a toss-up for me, because I think everything is telling me that I trust the Packers just simply a lot more. There's also, kind of the Ben Johnson effect of well, this guy's come in and kind of worked his magic, and we saw the Lions without him, and I don't know. He may have something up his sleeve. Is he the new Matt LaFleur? Is it, all these questions that I think we'll start to ask. But yeah, it's a tough game, and I think this is probably the toughest one of the entire round for me when it comes to trying to figure out how it plays out, because I think you can make great arguments for both teams, but really, your prediction may come down to, do you trust Caleb Williams in this spot? And I think, again, that's going to be the talking point that we're probably debating the most come Tuesday.
Yeah, and I am going to make sure, if the Packers do lose, Blake, last time that these two played and they lost, I just went on arguing with anybody that would come my way on Twitter. So I am not going to do that. I am going to delete the Twitter app off my phone during and after this game, because I am a Troy student. I am a Troy supporter, but I was arguing with other Troy fans that why the Group of Five did not belong in the college football playoff. That also happened that night. So I will not do that. But no wrestling question this time. This time we'll hit that up next time, have you on the show. But appreciate a lot of fun talking. We hit on a bunch of different topics. It's really like having you on, Blake, because you like a lot of the same things I like. So I know we were kind of a good conversation. But anyways, Blake, if people want to check you out, follow you, where can they find you?
Yeah, I always appreciate it, Phillip. Yeah, you can find, of course, all of our SEC stuff over at Southeastern 16, YouTube, any podcast app. Yeah, and you can find all my other various stuff, NFL, wrestling, all that. Yeah, you can search it out there, and you'll find it somewhere. So,
all right, go check it out. And Blake, again, appreciate the time.
Yep, thanks for having me, Phillip. Always enjoy it.
All right, had a lot of fun there talking with Blake Lovell about all the different things. And we usually do get into a wrestling thing, but we kind of went about 38 minutes with our conversation. Pod is now 45 minutes, so I figured we'll just hold that off for next time. I'm sure I'll talk to Blake here pretty soon about different things. As you said, we jumped on college basketball, football, the NFL. I always point out Blake. You go check him out. Southeastern 16, him, Chris Lee, all the guys really do a great job with SEC stuff. He does a great job with his Established Past podcast, his wrestling coverage, all the stuff Blake does, top notch. I'm gonna get out of here for this week's show, but we're gonna do some instant reaction episodes Thursday night after the Miami Ole Miss game and Friday night after the Indiana Oregon game, reacting to the semifinals college football playoff. And then next week we back, hopefully, preview the national championship game, a bunch of other stuff. I will say, moving forward with this pod, it will be very college football heavy, which is all it has been. But it's just kind of not going to shy away from that. But that will be always kind of like the centerpiece of this show from now on. But other sports topics will kind of make their way in here time to time. But anyways, that's what we got going on this week, and I appreciate it. Hey, if you're a subscriber to the Wiregrass High School Football Report, there may be a new episode of that coming up in the coming weeks as well. We have new coaches in the area, so I got to reach out and get some interviews with them. All right, I'm gonna get out of here. I got to go pay the bills. Got to go do the day job. Anyways, I hope you will like this podcast, share it out, tell people I should be listening to it, and I really would appreciate it. A lot of hard work goes in to the Phillip George Show podcast. Remember, follow me on social media at P. George Sports. You find a podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms. Check us out over on YouTube at the Phillip George Sports YouTube channel. Anyways, hope everybody has a great rest of their week, great weekend. A lot of fun football to watch. Good basketball this weekend too as well. So a lot going on in the sports world right now. All right. Till next time. Bye bye.